Helver, Hanover. Hanover up in
Green Shoe will win the Kentucky Futurity.
It's all Hanover in 149-2. You're my candy girl, 148-2, a stakes and track record.
Percy Blue Chip for the victory!
Multiple stakes winner Courtly Choice is now standing at Winback Farm of New York.
Courtly Choice and the Buckeye Hall of Famer Dave Miller does it. Courtly Choice.
Rush, three of them across the track. Who's it gonna be? It's Courtly Choice.
Courtly Choice sets sail, and it's Courtly Choice with a stunning upset.
It's all Courtly Choice and David Miller in front 148-3.
For more information, visit winbackfarm.com.
John, tell me a little bit about your operation here at Southern Oaks.
Currently, we've got 40 colts down here. Usually, I don't bring any aged horses. I brought 2 4-year-olds. We have 26 babies, and the rest are returning 3-year-olds. Babies will leave first part of May 1st, 2nd, 3rd, somewhere in there, and we'll filter the 3-year-olds up between now and then and see what we can do this summer.
How long have you been here at Southern Oaks? How many years?
This is our 13th year coming down here. Usually you have your children will graduate from high school and they'll go off to college. Our son graduated from high school and we left him at home, and mom and dad took off and became snowbirds. So this is our 13th year coming down here to Southern Oaks.
And we've talked about you are a big proponent of training in the winters here. You've said before it just adds something not only to your racehorse program but to your life as well.
Yeah, it does. I grew up in northern Illinois, and we spent 23 years there before we made the move to come down here in the wintertime. We had some luck. We had some good horses. I mean, Plezak made $2.5 million, and he trained over my farm track through the snow in the winter all the time. But just coming down here, I was a little hesitant. It's always worrisome to make a move, whether people are going to support you and not support you. But we found it to be economically viable. I mean, it really doesn't cost anything more to be down here. It's a great area to be. Personal lifestyle, if you don't live longer, you're going to live more because you can do stuff in the winter. And you see somewhat, just kind of when we first came down here talking to other people, more of a steady growth. I mean, any kind of training regimen or program, people or whatever, nutrition, exercise. You get set an exercise program, you're on the racetrack. Everything that we used to put a lot of corn, we used to put a lot of stuff in their diets when we were north, and it seemed like that went to keep the horses warm. And now everything we give the horse here is being utilized to get stronger and strength. They grow at this. People that train up north, and myself included, they would go through plateaus, they'd go through growth spurts, and sometimes, especially with the trotters, it seems like all of a sudden, what happened? I don't know, it felt like it grew 5 legs, and then they kind of go through a little bit, and I think it's when the grass turns green and stuff, and it's worked out well for us.
Talking a little bit, John, regarding COVID and the changes that have happened, what was different this year with your even sale selection or inspection bidding of these yearlings?
The main part for me was the lack of owners at the sale. They relied on me more heavily, and I had to be maybe a little more conscious. If we're standing side by side and the horse, we're going to go 50,000 and he's at 55, and I'm going like, what do I do? If you're one of my owners, give one more bump, and you'll see that. I mean, if you watch and the bid spotters will watch, you're always looking at somebody or an owner, and you get caught up in it, the auction. So maybe I was a little more disciplined in where I was going and what I was spending. As far as the yearling inspections, we didn't have any of the farms that we normally go to that we didn't make it to or had any problems looking at them. The sales venues between Goshen, Lexington, Indiana, and Timonium, they were very amenable. I mean, I think they made the appropriate changes. There were fewer people, but the buyers, the trainers, and the series, everybody was still there. So I think it did probably drive some of the sale prices lower because you didn't have that people there. You didn't have the camaraderie going out in Lexington for dinners and people putting together partnerships or figuring things out. So I think it had an effect on the sales.
Did you find yourself utilizing the new technology like the inspection part videos that were out, and do you think that they'll be used in the future?
I think they have a place. I like to look at a horse. I mean, it had the place because the owners weren't able to be there. So it gave them more tools to make a decision when we talked over the phone.
John, tell me a little bit about your program in regards to the horses have been purchased. They're now in your operation. Where do they go from there up until this point?
It depends where they're purchased at. Usually our first purchase is, if we purchase anything out of the Goshen sale, they'll go to the farm there in Pennsylvania. We'll get them hooked and going and then probably turn them out for a while, and they'll make the trip south when the horses from Harrisburg will go south. The horses we purchase in Lexington, we send all out to Kentuckiana Farm the following morning. I like get them out of the sales area, get out there. They do a great job, as all the other farms. I mean, Amble and Lace does a great job, Hunterton, and I'm not just selecting a few, and there's quite a few people that do that, and it gets the horses in a more natural environment. Those horses, they'll remain in Kentucky for 2 to 3 weeks. We'll have the vet come down, we'll fluoroscope them all, check for any OCDs or any structural abnormalities. Those horses usually arrive in Florida before the 24th, 25th, 26th of October. I'll come down, we'll open the barn up, power wash the stalls, disinfect, get everything in order, open up our house, and then those horses will arrive. I'll be down here with a skeleton crew of depends how many yearlings, get them all hooked and going, and I'll go north for the Harrisburg sale. So it kind of breaks up the ship. We get the first group going. Harrisburg horses we send back to the farm in Wind Gap, and they're usually there for a week. Same thing, the vet will come out, they'll fluoroscope them there, make sure everything's okay or not. If we find OCDs, they'll get hooked and brought down here. So when they arrive here in the middle of November, everybody's probably been hooked and going. Slowly train them down, kind of like everybody else does. Start going 2 trips with them around the 1st of March, and we're the middle of March now, and we've been in the 222 to 225 range with pretty much everything that's going, trotters, pacers, both. So.
Have they started to separate themselves between an A group, a B group, or is that come later in the year?
They separate themselves out from day one, actually. It's just those groups are very fluid. Yeah. Some that a bad horse will never, hardly, I can't say never. I had one of my worst training horses ever, turned out to be the New York Sire Stake champ pacing colt last year, but I mean, in 3 minutes he would try to pull up, do everything. I was like, oh man, I don't know, and we kept going. He's turned into a really good horse. So I guess there's exceptions to every rule, but they have to do good almost from the get-go in order to remain good. Everybody says, oh, I knew this horse was good from day one. Well, they better be good from day one, because otherwise you're in a heap of trouble. A lot of those good from day one horses fall by the wayside. Those ones that aren't no good, yeah, you got to manage them, pick your spots. Hopefully you get them to the races and make them marketable, or put them in the spots where they can make the money. That's the one thing transitioning from the Midwest to the East Coast was finding your spots. When we were in Illinois, you had a set group of yearlings, and if you were one of the top 5, you were one of the top 5, and you had your races that were set. That's where you race. Now out here, you have your Sire Stake program, your Grand Circuits, you got your Excelsior A, Excelsior B, and Sire Stakes division in New York, Pennsylvania. You have your Stallion Series or Sire Stake, and you got to best figure out how to make money. I mean, if you've got a horse that can pace in 52, do you finish 3rd or 4th in the Sire Stakes, or do you win the Stallion Series? A lot more management becomes involved on the East Coast is what I've noticed.
Let's talk about a couple of yours that you've selected, that you've kind of picked out for us. One of them being Kathy Hanover, a 2-year-old filly that you bought from the Hanover consignment at Timonium, I believe.
Yeah, she's a betting line filly, and I had a betting line filly that my wife is in partnership with Dr. Egloff's wife, and she did well. I mean, she wasn't a great filly. She made $50,000, which, by our standards is pretty good. It helps us make a living. And people seem to be off on them last year. The breeding end is very fickle as far as what the buyers will or won't be willing to go for. Looking at the horses at Hanover Shoe Farms, Irv Miller and myself go to most of the farms and we look at most of the horses. Just so happened, sitting around, had my notes on her. She wasn't selling for what I thought she should sell for, so I raised my hand and bought her. So then it was like, had to explain that one to my wife too.
What is the process that you put behind? So it's time for the yearling sales, the videos are out, the books are out. Where do you begin?
I've tried it a bunch of different ways. At one point, as soon as the videos would come out, I'd look at the videos. Then I find myself prejudiced when I look at the yearling themselves. I'd say, man, I love the video on this horse, and then I'd look at the horse. He's maybe got an offset knee, or he's pretty sickle-hocked. So I start making exceptions on a horse that if I would have just looked at him, that I wouldn't have passed. Videos can somewhat fool you, so we like going and looking at the horses. Like I say, depending on the consignment, Hanover had 220 or 30 yearlings. I think we looked at 180 of them over 2 days.
You said that you go through the process quickly. What are the things that you're looking for when you first get there? What catches your eye?
They'll bring the horse out. You want to see a happy, alert horse. And I've kind of got a type in my mind. Everybody makes fun of me that works for me, says, let's go look at the yearlings. Are you happy to look at them? They go, no. So why not? So, well, we know what they're going to look like. They're just going to be smaller or taller versions of the same horse. And I've got criteria on how I want my horses to look or what they look like. Because I think it's important as a trainer or anybody, when you set behind one, you better like them. If I don't like to see a horse with a peaked ass, I like to see a good wither on one. There's certain things I want to see on the horse. And then they have to look athletic.
What about pedigree? Is that one of your strongest things that you're looking at, or do you pick the individual first and then go back to the pedigree?
Pedigree to me determines the price of the horse. I'll look at maternal side. I want to see a good production. Speed used to be relative, and not that speed isn't relative. You want to see earnings, you want to see durability, you want to see stakes earners in the maternal side. And then you want to see what pedigrees work and how the crosses work. And then it becomes down to what's the price. I can have a great looking individual that's Iowa bred. You're not going to give $100,000 for it. But if it's a Walner colt or a Muscle Hill colt or something like that, and depending on the dam side, you're going to pay more. So I use the pedigree more as a value determination than I do a qualification or disqualification.
I understand. Let's talk about a horse that you know the pedigree of quite well. Woodward Famous Dan, you purchased from the Hoosier Classic sale for $34,000. Tell us a little bit about it. You trained, of course, Dover Dan, one of your, most famous horses, and tell us a little bit about it.
Actually, my wife insisted. She said, "Now you're going to go buy some Dover Dam babies, right?" I said, "Well, I guess." I really wasn't knowing if I was going to Indiana or not. So I went out and I bought 3 horses. So wonderful. Here we go again. I got a problem raising my hand. It's easy to buy them. It's not always as easy to pay for them, but we'll figure that out later.
Right.
But no, I was real interested in seeing what they look like. So I went out there, I looked at all the Dover Dams, and I was really impressed with how they looked. The consigners seemed to be happy with them as a lot, so we gave it a shot. I bought one earlier in the sale for $9,500, and he's training really well for me. I have him with another trainer, is part owner on it. He's been handling the majority of the duties on him. I went 1 mile and 23 with him the other day and was very happy with him. This colt here, I thought he reminded me, he's out of a Muscle Hill mare, which you gotta love a Muscle Hill mare. First foal, good family, and he reminded me just of his father.
He looks just like him.
You watch him on the racetrack, you look at him as an individual, and I really didn't think I was going to be able to afford him, because I'm just 50% with Bill Wiswell from Wisconsin. It was going to be just the 2 of us. And I was like, well, I don't know, the way some of the ones I like sold, because they were really well received at the sale. So hopefully they'll show up this year on the racetrack and they'll be well received again next year. But just really like the colt. He's just a dandy. He's a smart colt. He's a fun colt to be around. He just got personality. But so we'll see.
Great. Tell me a little bit about Pure Wow, a horse that was a sale at Lexington for $55,000.
Yeah, I went up to Crawford Farms, looked at all their horses. Same thing, turned out the ones that I liked. Come sale time, Al's brother, Jim Crawford, said, I was out there on video day. I really like this filly. What do you think of her? I said, I think she's pretty nice, Crazy Wild's a 3/4 brother, or however it works on the pedigree side. I had trained the 2-year-old Father Patrick Sexy Wow. She had a lot of speed. She was kind of physically immature. This filly just had a bigger presence, real nice presence, and honestly thought she would bring 75,000 to 6 figures. It's another one of them. We were sitting around and we thought, well, if we could get her bought for 50, that'd be okay. And I think she was a 50 or 52. And there again, if I was by myself, I probably would have kept my hands in my pocket and looked at Jim and give me a nudge. Okay, why not? Yeah. So we make the bid, and then they say, here, sign this ticket. So and then we got Dave Miller was real interested in her. The owner, Dave Miller, with Pinsky's and of Amigo Volo fame. And then Alan Michelle approached me about buying back. He asked who our partners were. And I said, well, your brother. And he said, well, I'll have to go talk to him. So that's our partnership makeup on her. But that's how it come about. And she's trained really great. I mean, she just, Michelle had posted a picture of her as 4 days old. And I was like, this filly didn't change except got bigger. I mean, she was a tank when she was 4 years old, had the same presence, and it's the same way now, So hopefully she'll show up on the racetrack.
Speaking of Crawford Farms, you also have the Bay filly,
Praziolite, I think.
Praziolite. So I looked it up, and it is a gem that is said to carry confidence and attract wealth, abundance to your life. So tell us a little bit about this $55,000 filly.
I hope all of that rings true in the future. Same thing. I mean, I was kind of surprised 2 years ago at the sales you couldn't touch a Chapter 7. For whatever reason, people were, can't say they were down on the Chapter 7s. We purchased 4 of them, all for what I thought were moderate prices. This is a filly that I seen at the farm as well. I really liked her. I mean, we had some luck with Destined to Dance. She kind of reminded me, size-wise, manner-wise, how she moved in the field. And another one that she come through the sale. I liked the price. Al's brother, Jim, also bought it. I said, let's go after this. Al and Michelle come up and said they would like, asked again what, percentages would be available. They bought in, and they had brought a new ownership group into the fold that I haven't trained horses for before. Mortgage Boys Stable is the name out of New York. So there's some new owners that are in the barn this year because of that filly. And, we're hoping for some luck there. But she's training well, doing everything we ask for her. Very smart, sensible. We've got a nice limestone half out here that we can train the New York breds on. And she's getting around the turns real well so far, and encouraging.
Your greatest partnership is the one with your wife, Jackie, of course. She's been a huge part of your success, and also now together you've got Tyler involved. So tell us a little bit about his involvement in the stable.
You want to tell it? His mother did everything she possibly could to make him hate me and the business. I think she succeeded on one front. There's oftentimes that maybe he thinks that I'm not training a horse rigged right, or he may miss the mile a little bit. And you would think that if you're going a mile in like 2 minutes, you shouldn't go in 2 minutes and a fifth. When Dad thinks maybe you should. But right. No, it's been a really great relationship. It's worked out good. I believe Tyler is at least the 4th, if not 5th generation horseman. I'm the 1st generation, so they kind of want to hold that as a trump card over top of me. But I'll hold my own against them. But no, Jackie's done a wonderful job. She manages all the books. If anything was ever to happen, I don't even know where I'd find my money.
John, let's move on and talk about Honole, one of your purchases for $100,000 in Lexington. Tell us a little bit about what went through your mind there without having partners.
I was like, did I just really do that? No, but they were pleased actually when I told them that I did buy them. He basically fell in the range that we were looking for. So it worked out. He's training like we would hope when we purchased him for that price.
Now, because of the pedigree and because he is of the Sun Beach Somewhere line, will he remain a colt? Is that in your mind when it comes down to the time to geld? Do you think of that?
I do somewhat. I mean, this year I was a little more aggressive with the knife. I have 3 colts still. The Walner colt is out of a Muscle Hill mare, and then I have the that colt, obviously, and I have a Crypt Orchid, and I've just been hesitant to see if I couldn't maybe get his second testicle to drop. Doesn't seem to be bothering him gait-wise. He's a little bit cantankerous. He's an EL Titan colt, and normally I would have cut him. But everybody else, there's so many studs out there right now, and the chances. I'm buying horses at a price range where I'm really not trying to find a stud. I'd like to make a stud. You know, Dover Dan, it worked out. I want racehorses. There doesn't seem to be the great prejudice against the geldings now that there used to be. I grew up my whole life being a single and double hitter. I never swung for the home runs or the grand slams very much.
Tell me about Craft Brew Lindy, a horse that you purchased at Lexington, colt for $12,000. Once again, that's like your bargain number.
Yeah, I mean, he's another one that I was really surprised at. He's maybe a little heavier than what you would typically see out of a Cantab, and that may have turned people off. And for whatever reason, it seemed like the Cantabs, they were a little bit off. I was really surprised that I was able to buy him. Nice big strong colt over here, training really well. Tickled to death with him. You know, $12,000, unfortunately, his fate was doomed. He walks around with a little higher voice because he lost his. but he's a racehorse. Yes. You know, how many people are going to breed to a $12,000 yearling realistically? And we're looking for a racehorse, you know. And when I went through and I picked these horses, somewhat randomly, I tried to pick out the horses that are doing well that we're talking about, and I tried to be inclusive of the owners. So there's some new ownership groups on people that own him that haven't been in the barn before and whatnot.
Hopes and Wishes comes to you from Winback Farms. Tell us a little bit about her.
Yes, I got a call from Jeff Fout, and he had asked if I had some room to take a couple of horses for them, and he said he had two trotting fillies that he really liked. One is a Cantab sister to a filly I raced last year as a 3-year-old. And Hopes and Wishes is a bar hopping filly. Said she's a little bit cantankerous to break hook, but other than that, she's a really nice filly. So got her down here. He was right. She's a really nice filly, and she is a little cantankerous. She's gotten over that. I mean, she likes Florida, but a real nice filly. Probably going to be a little later comer this year. She's a big, long, leggy filly, but I think she's something that she's really going to show up. She's going to show what she is. Nice family, but just about the right attitude is what I like on her, and I think she's going to come around, you know, so I'm pleased to have her in the barn.
John, thank you so much, the entire Butenschoen family and Bella Butenschoen and Bella. Thank you for taking the time to talk to us today.
Oh, you're quite welcome. Thank you.
Multiple stakes winner Courtly Choice is now standing at Winback Farm of New York.
Courtly Choice and the Buckeye Hall of Famer Dave Miller does it. Courtly Choice.
Rush, 3 of them across the track. Who's it gonna be? It's Courtly Choice.
Courtly Choice sets sail, and it's Courtly Choice with a stunning upset.
It's all Courtly Choice and David Miller in front, 148-3.
For more information, visit winbackfarm.com.
Marlowe, Hanover, Hanover, Oticon, Hanover up in
Green Shoe will win the Kentucky Futurity.
It's all Hanover in 149-2. You're my candy girl, 148-2, a stakes and track record.
Percy Blue Chip for the victory.